Hello, I'm James Whale, and this is Talk About Part 1, a taste of greater... Good morning, welcome to part 2 of Talk About, the programme where you can ring and tell us what's right or wrong with the world today. There are 30 people waiting to take your calls just over there on 0345 779911, all for the price of a local call. And we'll come to you just as soon as I've introduced my guest. She's been one of the hidden influences in shaping our ideas about modern women, as she spent 6 years as editor of Cosmopolitan magazine. She's now branched out onto other pages. She's Marcelle Dargy-Smith. What other pages? Just any page, or...?
No, not any pages, but I've been writing for some newspapers and magazines, and...
Are you happy? Was it because of stress? We were talking about stress in the workplace. Was there too much stress or not?
No, I think you can do something for a long time. You know, I did it for 6 years.
Mm.
It is stressful.
Do you think there is stress in the workplace?
I don't know if there was in mine particularly. I mean, I loved what I was doing, but I think there's I think there's terrible stress in the workplace. I think these days, if you've got a job, you have to work till you drop, and there are loads of people who don't have jobs. There's no happy medium anymore. Well,
the government's chief medical officer today pointed out that there is apparently a lot of stress in the workplace, and for him to point that out, then something must be done. Must be done. We mentioned school troublemakers. We mentioned the IRA in Gibraltar as well. Another story that caught my eye in the newspapers, tomatoes, which is going to upset people quite a lot, I think. And we're...
Caught all our eyes. What, genetic engineering of tomatoes.
Do we mind?
I personally don't mind. So I'm a bit worried they might taste the way tomatoes look in America. When you're in America, you see these gorgeous tomatoes. You salivate looking at them. I love tomatoes. And when you eat them, there's no flavour, which is terrifying.
But there's no flavour in a lot of food today, is there? I mean, eggs taste like absolutely nothing, and a lot of food just tastes very, very bland.
No, but you know, it is true that if you're in the country or something and you get almost the taste of soil on it, it's wonderful. I don't know how they'll taste. No, occasionally you get...
Depends what sort of genetic engineering goes into it, I suppose.
The papers say they're going to taste okay.
Most important news story today we could find, and that is the story of the conker. Yes. Now, I said to somebody, there must be conkers, and they went outside and collected all these.
No, but they're small.
They're small?
I think this is a serious crisis. You know, it's part of our... Somebody said our national heritage, and that's absolutely true. And... No, but it's true, because I dated, you know, being a grown... I had a 22er once that I kept for about 2 years. I was about 10. And they're important. I mean, what can you do with this?
Yes, I never knew what people did do with conkers, but you're absolutely right. And in the first part of the programme earlier this morning, we also mentioned Princess Di, the portrait. Oh, no, I've drawn on this one. I better not hold it up. But I don't know.
You've drawn them all. No, this...
Well, no, but do you like it or not? You said earlier you didn't, actually. Well, you changed your mind?
But I read that Princess Diana did. She wanted to look strong. I personally am bored witless with Princess Diana and her portrait and seeing her every day. I actually couldn't care less, and I don't think this is a story, but if you persist in talking about it, I suppose...
No. We'll see what people want to talk about, whether they want to talk about that or not. Let's go to the first call, I think, 0345 779911. And let's talk to David, who's in London. David, what would you like to talk about this morning?
Oh, good morning.
Hi.
I would like to mention the Gibraltar killings.
Yes.
Well, I've recently moved from Northern Ireland.
Right.
I lived all my life there. I've had several friends maimed by the IRA, and one good friend, a young man, a law-abiding citizen, murdered in cold blood by the IRA. What about their rights?
Yes, but does that give the state the right to, if the way the Court of Human Rights looks at it, does that give the state the right to go off and be judge, jury and executioner in one?
Now,
does that help the situation?
They're sitting in a nice, comfortable courtroom with their fancy robes and all, and probably an armed guard on the front door. Who are they to make decisions that had to be made or to judge decisions that had to be made in a second.
David, if it had been the other way round, if the terrorists had been the other side, would you have felt the same way?
A terrorist is someone who resorts to the use of the gun and the bomb.
From what other side?
But, from either side.
Right.
But, a freedom fighter is someone who resorts to the gun and the bomb, but has no access to a ballot box.
Yeah.
The IRA, the people of Northern Ireland and of Southern Ireland, all have access to the ballot box.
And they should...
You go along there on the appointed day and make your mark.
OK, thank you, David. The interesting thing is, of course, to one person is a terrorist, another person is a freedom fighter, and where you draw the line.
Exactly right. But also, I mean, if they're on your side, they're freedom fighters. But what David said has got little to do. It's just another terrible incident with what happened in Gibraltar.
But the Court of Human Rights as well has made some very strange, isn't it, decisions? I think
it's made some rather good decisions. I think it's often very balanced and fair. I think there have been rulings that have gone against Britain. I mean, the age of, for homosexuals, the age of consent, which has been brought in line with heterosexual sex, so I think that was absolutely fair. The right of, you know, when women, when Englishmen married foreign women, they were allowed to bring their wives back. When women married foreign men, they weren't allowed to bring their husbands back.
Do you think
it's a totally sexist piece of legislation?
This could actually
That's now been overthrown.
This could actually stop the government taking any notice of the court at all. Would that be bad? Presumably it would.
Well, I think it would be appalling. I mean, we're either part of that or we're not.
OK, let's talk to, I think we're going to Anne in Hitchin next. Anne, what would you like to talk about this morning?
Good morning, Mr.
Hello.
Weil. I would like to say I agree with the European Court's decision yesterday, particularly because I think all governments should act within the law and be seen to act within the law, not to adopt the standards of terrorism, because that will only swell the ranks of terrorism. And it's interesting that the onlookers in Gibraltar thought they were witnessing a terrorist attack when people with their hands in the air were shot in the back and shot several times as they lay prone and helpless on the ground.
I wonder how when you opened one of the papers, The Sun I'm looking at here actually today, with the headline right in the middle, the Euro Clown Court, which gives...
that's The Sun. Sorry, but that's The Sun, and I just happen to agree with the last caller, as I've made clear. They may well have been terrorists, but at that point they were surrendering, they had their hands up, and as I said earlier, you are innocent until proven guilty. OK, Anne, thank you very much indeed for your call. Let's talk to Sarah, who's in Manchester now. Sarah, what would you like to talk about? Hello.
Good morning. I go to Gibraltar quite a lot, and speaking to the Gibraltar people, they were relieved that these terrorists were stopped from bombing Gibraltar, because it's got narrow streets and high buildings, so you can imagine what would happen, the carnage and the killings would just have been awful. These terrorists don't care about innocent people. Ask Mr. and Mrs. Parry. They don't obey any laws, do they? As for the woman that said she saw them with their hands up, I have spoken to several people that were in the area, and no one else saw the terrorists with their hands up. There's only this one lady, and I understand she did it for publicity. She got a lot of publicity out of it.
How do you feel, Sarah, about the fact that compensation, it's not actually compensation, but the costs for the court case may be paid by the government? Do you think that's right or not?
No, I don't think it's right. No, I'm sorry. These people are criminals. You ask the Irish people themselves. Ask the Irish people themselves. They're fed up with these terrorists. They're fed up with this minority people demanding this and demanding that and using religion. How dare they use religion as a basis for it?
Sarah, don't you think that everybody has the right to a trial, though?
Yes,
don't you think they could have been arrested rather than shot?
Listen, our soldiers don't kill anybody unless there is a 100% reason. They do not kill terrorists. There's loads and hundreds of terrorists in the prison where they've taken them. These men were going to bomb Gibraltar, which, if you've been to Gibraltar, the high buildings, the close compact, it would be unbelievable. Our soldiers don't kill terrorists unless they're 100% sure.
Thank you, Sarah. So a point, though, there was no doubt about the fact that these people were there intent to kill innocent people.
That's absolutely right, but you can't just shoot people. It's what you said. They are entitled to a fair trial. It must have been terrible.
Even if they are there to take innocent lives of people, and not to worry about who may well have been walking along the street, who would have been affected by a bomb had it gone off.
No, I think it's incredibly, incredibly difficult. It must have been hell for those soldiers. But the fact is, I mean, that I just don't think because you're a soldier with a gun, you can go and kill people. You may be looking, you may be hunting them down.
Of course, the other side of the story is, Marcelle, that you know, they thought, that's what we heard, that they thought they were in danger, and that's why they did it, and we weren't there. So
that I understand, and I don't necessarily think these soldiers are culpable.
Right.
You know,
Let us move on. Let's talk to Jonathan, who's in Plaistow, and Jonathan wants to change the subject. Jonathan.
Yes. Good morning, James.
Good morning.
Something that reared its ugly head on your show this morning again was school bullies. I'm 36 and I'm a catering manager. When I was at school, I was fairly bright and I was classed as a so-called egghead and was teased and taunted so much. The teachers would say I should fight back and push me into giving back as good as I got. So I got to the stage when I became the bully instead of doing what I wanted, which was enjoying school.
Do you think that bullying can ever... I know exactly what you mean, and I remember being at school, particularly when the older boys used to like to ride the younger ones, and, you know, they'd get on your shoulders, you carry them along, give them your sweets, all that sort of... I mean, do you think that there's ever going to be a time when bullying can be stopped? I mean, should we be trying to stop bullying, or...
Well,
is it as big a problem as people say?
It obviously is a very big problem.
Sorry, Jonathan.
No, that's right. I have seen teachers nowadays in a local school near where I live where children who can't compete in games in a playground or on a field, and the teachers are pushing them about and saying to the children, come on, get on with it. And then the other children tease them, and the teachers think this is great fun, and it encourages the children who can't do the work or can't do the games or whatever to get back on with their life, and it just doesn't work.
You know, we're having the we have talk of this new hit squad that's going to go into school. I don't know what they're going to do, actually. This hit squad's going to go into schools and sort out the discipline. One of the things always I remember from my time at school, anyway, is a kind of lack of lack of respect shown to children by teachers quite often.
Lack of respect, yes.
You know, you can't have it all one way. There has to be a sort of both ways.
It would be interesting, wouldn't it, if the... I think teachers ought to have a course in basic psychology, and which they don't have. And I think...
Can we bring David of Ashington up in Northumberland in as well? David, hello.
Hello.
David, you're a teacher, aren't you?
I was.
You were a teacher?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was involved in two incidents, one outside the school and one inside the school. The one outside the school was where a young boy attacked me with a knife. And the one inside the school was where actually I was trying to prevent a bullying situation.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the big lad decided to take me on instead. And I was reprimanded for defending myself, basically.
When you say you defended yourself, what did you actually do?
Well, I restrained him. I actually had him in a half Nelson, but unfortunately I was a bit overzealous.
And did you hurt him?
I hurt him, yes.
Yeah, well, need I say more?
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, you're not a teacher anymore.
No.
It was obviously not the choice of career that you should have followed.
I was a good teacher. I had a lot of youngsters who used to come to my after-school activities because they wanted to. You mentioned earlier this business of respect. I had a great deal of respect for my youngsters. In fact, I did everything in my power to build them up.
Why do you think, as a teacher, there are lacks of discipline then?
I think, to be honest, the bulk of it is from the home. I've made great efforts with my three children to make sure that they respect everybody, regardless of their race, gender, whatever.
But you bring your three children up in the same way?
I have.
And there'll be one perhaps is different to the others?
They're all different to each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the fact is they still respect each other. I will not allow any of them to pick on the others.
But can I just ask you, in so many homes, there are absentee fathers, there are divorced parents, and I think as a school has to run as a kind of little world on its own, you don't think that when children first start school, it ought to be made very clear by the head, by all the teachers, the kind of atmosphere they expect, the kind of respect they expect, is this communicated to the children very early on? I think it isn't, because people keep saying it's up to the parents. Well, to be absolutely honest, in many cases, the act of two people rolling over and having sex one night and producing a child doesn't necessarily make you a parent.
True, very true.
So I think that it's up to these schools, that they need a lot of backing and a lot of support.
Absolutely. And in fact, very often it's the parents that the teachers want to talk to that never show up, despite letters going back to the parents saying, please come in to
but you can't blame it all on children, on parents.
We're very lucky here that the schools do actually lay down the law, if you like, at a very early stage. Or certainly the first school that all three of my children have gone to.
Do you regret being...
Good.
Sorry, just before we move on, David, do you regret being overzealous?
Yes, because it's affected my career ever since.
Yeah, but you regret it because of... Yeah, OK. Thank you for your call. Keep those calls coming in, and we'll see you in a couple of seconds.
If you're enraged, upset or challenged by what you've heard so far and want to put your view for a change, ring Talk About now on 0345 779911. That's 0345 779911. For the price of a local call from anywhere in the country. We've got 30 operators waiting to hear from you now. Whatever your point of view on any of today's news stories, ring Talk About now on 0345 779911.
See, that's a very funny shape, that one, isn't it? I mean, EC regulations would probably say that was just not acceptable.
Hey, compared to what?
Yeah, well, it's got a very flat bottom there and rounded top. Anyway, Conkers, there's a shortage at the moment. Welcome back. Now, we have... Where are we going over here? I think we've got Professor John Durrant on the phone. He's phoned in. And you're an expert, sir, on tomatoes.
Well, I know something about plant biotechnology, which is what those tomatoes you're talking about are to do with.
Right, OK, yes. Well, we'll try and follow. Okay. What are they doing with the tomatoes? I heard it was something to do with a fish gene. Is that right?
Well, not really. The tomatoes that are going to be have been launched, I think, by Zeneca, have come from a new technique of modifying the genetic structure of plants to produce new kinds of qualities. In this case, I think the tomatoes have had a gene inserted into them which slows down the ripening process. That may not sound a very interesting thing to do.
So you can pick them earlier and they don't ripen for longer, so you can keep them in the shops longer.
Well, it's not just that. The problem with the tomatoes that you and I buy most of the time is that they've been harvested green, because only harvesting them green gives you time to get them onto the shelves, by which time they've become red. Now, will
it affect the taste? That's what we really want to know.
It affects the taste, I'm told, because most of the taste comes from the sun, you know, blessing those tomatoes on the plants. So if you can leave them on the plants till they're red and still get them into the supermarkets in a fit state to eat, they're better. And that's really what it's all about.
But if you buy them green and you put them on the windowsill in the sunshine, isn't that just as good as having them out in the field?
I don't think so. I think people who grow their own tomatoes at home will tell you that if you pluck them ripe, they taste a lot better than the ones you currently buy in the supermarket, which is why a lot of people prefer to grow their own.
You're a tomato fan, aren't you?
I'm a tomato fan. So they're going to taste like the ones do in America, no taste?
It depends which ones in America, because in America they're already selling this new genetically modified variety, the Flavor Saver it's called, and I'm told that people are buying them like the proverbial hot cakes.
Listen, Professor, while we have you on, I mean, this is quite an important point. I mean, you're the expert in this food.
Well, no, I don't do the actual research, but
no.
Don't mistake me, but anyway.
But I mean, why is it that they seem to have lost the flavour of food, or is that just something we have to put up with now as we...
Well, I think a lot of it, I mean, what I think has happened is this, that there's been a demand to be able to buy more or less whatever fruit and vegetable you want at any time of year. And the only easy way so far to do that is often to harvest fruit and vegetables very early and then fly them or take them long distances to get them into the supermarkets. And what scientists and technologists are working on now is producing new varieties which allow you to harvest ripe and still have all the things you want when you want them in the supermarket. It's the next stage, in a sense, in catering to our ever more sophisticated taste for a bigger variety of food.
We might actually get back the flavour we lost then.
Well, I think that's the aim.
Good. Thank you very much indeed. That's good news for you. Yes, Louise is in London. And Louise, you're now on Talk About. What would you like to talk about?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I think the portrait of Princess Diana is really great. And I think that the problem that we've had with world portraits in the past is that they're so bland and characterless, and that they don't say anything about the person. In the portrait of the princess, the recent portrait, she's, you know, it shows what she's been through. I mean, I think she's a bit haggard, but...
Marcelle doesn't think it's a news show. She thinks it's completely uninterested. And, I mean, quite frankly, you get a bit fed up with the royal family this and the royal family that and the royal family everything else. So that's... why are people so interested?
Well, I'm not particularly a royal fan myself, but I'm an art fan.
Yeah.
And I think that if we're going to have so much fuss about the royals, then one of the...
To be quite... I mean, if you're asking... I don't know what art, you know, an art critic might say, well, it ain't
An art critic might say, I do know about art and I know what I don't like.
Yes. But, I mean, it looks... You know...
it is stronger. It is better than usual, isn't it? She doesn't look bland. I agree with you.
I think the point of a portrait isn't so that it looks nice to hang on the wall. It's you know, to say something about the person itself.
And I mean, really, is it worth even the discussion? Who cares? I mean, basically, it's a picture, and if you've got a picture, that's fine, and if you're happy with it. But front page of a newspaper, I think, is possibly unnecessary. Good, OK, thank you very much indeed. Shall we squeeze in one before Craig, I think, is... Olli Craven. Can't read from here now. Lee Craven, right.
Good afternoon,
Lee,
James.
what would you like to talk about?
I'd like to talk about family allowance.
Right.
The reason I'm phoning it is family allowance was brought out many years ago for the poor. Yes?
Yeah.
For people with children.
Yeah.
Now, today, in today's life, well, what I think today is that people earning over £25,000 a year should not be entitled to that.
They shouldn't?
No.
What about the person who's earning $25,000 a year, is mortgaged up to the hilt, has children, has no extra money, and probably, you see, once you start bringing this means test in, you don't understand the individual situations for people, and there'll be... It's an interesting point.
I mean, do you mind a means test? Do you think it's a good idea, a means test?
Yes.
I sort of do. On the other hand, I guess it must be very difficult to have to... I mean, maybe it's just difficult and embarrassing, is it,
I
for some
wonder what
people?
anybody else feels. Call us if you have a view on means test. You don't care, anyway, about means testing.
I've got two children myself, and I'm on very low income. I'm glad I've got that, but if I was earning over £25,000, £30,000, I wouldn't expect that at all.
OK, Lee from Salford, thank you very much indeed, and maybe you'd like to call us about that as well. It's coming up to 12 o'clock, and we have to break for the news, but we'll be back to carry on the discussion with more callers in just over 5 minutes' time. Don't forget the number 0345 779911.
Do you agree or disagree with what you've heard so far? What points haven't been made? Or do you think we're missing the main story of the day? Whatever you want to talk about, ring us now on 0345 77 9911. It's only the cost of a local call. The Talk About number again, 0345 77 9911.
Welcome back to Talk About with me, James Whale, and my guest, Marcelle Darcy-Smith. Darcy-Smith. I'm sorry about that, Marcelle. One of the leading ladies of modern women's magazines. Is it embarrassing you or not? There's still time for you to join our discussion if you get your call in quickly on 0345 779911. Before we go out to the calls, you are not to eat these.
Yes, I tried to.
She was peeling one to eat it. These are poisonous.
There's that thing, there's that lovely song, Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire.
These are not the right sort. These are not the right sort. Anyway, to the calls. Gino Armani, famous name, like your shops, is on from Brighton. Gino, what can we talk about with you this morning?
Yeah.
Or this afternoon, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is afternoon. Yeah, I want to talk about the government. I mean, about their philosophy about the poor and the rich. I mean, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. I mean, that's
a very deep conversation. That'll take up most of the rest of the programme, I imagine.
No. I mean, they moan about crime and that lot all the time.
Yeah.
The government's always on moan about the increase of crime. I mean, a lot of it is down to the government because of the way they're treating the country
Yeah, but I mean, it's no excuse, Gino. I mean, just to say that some people haven't got what they want, so they go out and nick it.
Yeah,
no
I know,
excuse.
but it's not a case of that. I mean, like, if the world was all good, the world wouldn't exist. A lot of people would be out of work, and there'd be a hell of a lot more unemployment than what there is now.
A lot of people are out of work.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are out of work.
I mean, the government is doing a lot of damage to the country where they're not helping out the poorest areas where there should be help. You know, I mean, the homeless people. I've been on the streets myself, so I know what it's like. You know,
yeah.
I mean, like. At times you have to feed to survive.
So do you
can't
think
get help from anywhere else? What you got to do? You're going to die because the government says?
Do you think then that the fact is that people don't feel there's any reason to do anything now because they're never going to get anything, there's never going to be a job, and there's never.
I think the actual public today is really fed up with the government lying because they say they're going to do one thing and do totally the other.
Yeah. Well, that'll apply to any political party that was in power, wouldn't it, really?
Well, yeah, I know, but I mean...
So what's the answer? What do you think the answer is? Utopia, I suppose. I mean, we're never going to get it. You've just got to live through the system.
I know, but I mean, like, they waste a lot of money, the government does. It wastes untold money.
If they waste money, where would you like to see more money?
Into the housing for the homeless.
Yeah?
And helping the unemployed.
No, but that's
the children, most of all, the children, because it is the children's world. I mean, they're our future.
People
it's about
often
time the government stops, really bickering on about saying, we've got people slagging us off in.
Okay, hang on. Hang on just a minute. People often say that there are a lot of people homeless and a lot of builders out of work, and why can't the two be married up and we can sort both problems out? But it's an oversimplification.
I don't think that's what they say. I just think, but the fact is we're probably going to have to live in Europe now with about 30 million permanently unemployed, and we haven't really addressed that issue. And I think it's appalling to live in a country, and I completely agree with you, where people are on the streets. I think it's absolutely terrible that the way that the country is being run and the way employers now
but recently Jack Straw said that he wanted to he said that the people on the streets quite often had no real necessity to be there. They were doing it because they found it an easy option to getting money.
Well, I happen to disagree with Jack Straw, and so would a lot of people that are on the streets. I mean, a lot of people come down to London, a lot of people have been made homeless. I don't think that's the best option. There might be a very few people, there always were, who didn't mind eccentric people. But for the most part, I think you'll probably agree, people on the streets don't want to be there.
Do you think we will ever have full employment again?
No, never.
So why don't politicians say there will never be full employment again?
There can't possibly be full employment. But what I think companies are doing, and they seem to be encouraged to do this, we could be employing more people. The fact is that many big companies and corporations are laying off people who used to have jobs. They may have been smaller jobs, because what I think is very, very true today is, by the way, companies don't want to make profits. Oh, no. They want to make bigger profits. They want to deliver more profits. So they're running very lean, and that's awful. So it means a lot of people who did jobs which helped the people in work, which is why, by the way, and we'll probably get to this, the people in work are so damn stressed. They've got no support systems anymore.
We got around to that again. That was good.
Well, yes.
Gino, thank you very much indeed for that. You started everybody thinking now about that. The other thing, of course, is that people will say, we've been talking about the leisure society for years and years and years, and now it's here. There's not the necessity for people-intensive work anymore. You can do things with a fraction of the workforce.
There were two big fairy stories. One, everybody, 12 years ago, said, what are we going to do with all this leisure and free time? People in Britain now work longer hours than anybody in Europe. Careful with that, Conker.
No, I was going to say, right, we'll come back to that in a moment, because John Harvey is in Croydon. He's on Talk About now. John?
Hello.
Hello, John. Now, you wanted to talk about...
Well, the conker shortage, yeah?
Conkers. Oh. The conker shortage, of which we got half a dozen here on the table and many more outside Pebble Mill, yes.
Well, let's get back to the real issues of the day, the conkers.
The serious issues.
Yes,
yes, OK.
Well, I'm not totally... I'm quite pleased that there is a shortage of conkers, going back to my conker days, because I think they're very dangerous. Because most people who play conkers, in my experience, don't aim for the conker.
Technical term here. Yes. So what do they aim for?
The knuckle.
Yes.
I had bruises. My knuckles bear witness to the fact that conker is a very dangerous sport.
Did you ever soak yours in vinegar overnight?
I did, and it didn't
So did
work.
I.
didn't I?
And did you paint them with super glue too? That was always a good wheeze.
No, never did that. Roasted them.
Yeah.
But they used to shatter on first impact.
That's right, yes. Marcelle, do you understand the finer points of conkers?
I do understand. I had a 22er, I told you. But
Oh,
you
yes,
should
you
have
did.
played with women. And women tend not to aim for the
I
knuckle.
think you're right there.
You should have played with more women, yes.
No, it's not in Cosmopolitan now. A 22er?
I had 22,
That's
yeah,
very
for about 2
22er.
years.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good.
John?
Well, yes, indeed.
Yeah, very
I'm very impressed.
OK, thank you for your call, John. Let's go to Penny John, who's in Bridgend in South Wales.
Good morning, James.
Good morning.
I would just like to go back to the issue that you've been talking about this morning of hate squads going into schools. I basically think it's a waste of time. I think corporal punishment should be brought back into schools. If there was more discipline, there'd be more respect for people in authority, and society on the whole would improve.
You honestly think, Penny, that by hitting somebody you're going to get them to respect you? I mean, the only thing surely that corporal punishment does is make the person that you've beaten up on want to get back at you.
I don't think so. I think if it was done sensibly.
Oh, I don't think you can ever meter out violence to children sensibly.
It hasn't done me any harm. I went to school.
I don't believe that either. People say, well, I got beaten when I was at school, never did me any harm.
I went to school where we were smacked. If we were naughty, we were smacked. I don't think it's done me any harm. And I think if more children were taught respect in schools...
Don't you think, though, that the reason we have a lot of unruly kids now is because a lot of people say it's their parents. Now, their parents went to school when it was very fashionable for them to get clipped round the ear regularly.
No, I don't.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Marcelle?
Well, I mean, the idea, it is a loss of control, isn't it, if you have to hit somebody. But, Penny, you don't think it would be possible just to have an atmosphere of discipline? I mean, I went to a very good grammar school. You certainly had to go and see the head, and that was terrifying. Nobody was hit, but it was very well disciplined. They were very kind of tough, intelligent people teaching us.
But schools are lacking it. And I think if teachers had something to fall back on...
I know, but you shouldn't have to fall back on hitting somebody.
But
no, but you know that's
changing. I mean, look at children.
Hang on, Penny. I honestly don't believe that by hitting somebody you're going to make them respect you. Because can't think of anything that would make me respect somebody less than being hit.
Well, I know, but I suppose as an adult that you understand the finer points of hitting. I guess as a kid, I mean, if you watch the way the Animal King, the little tap, but you use the word sensibly, Penny, and that's when it's difficult. What is sensible? I mean, you might well get...
A teacher should know.
But they don't know. I mean...
But they should be taught to know, as you said earlier on, with teachers being...
Yeah, but how can you...
Like whatever it was, courses on human beings. I mean, it's totally... People don't respect anybody anymore.
Do you think... Can I just ask you, well, I was going to say, I just don't think society respects teachers. I really don't think we do. I'm appalled at the amount of work they have to do. I'm appalled at how much we pay them.
Stay on the air, Penny. Sorry, we're listening, Marcelle. I'm sorry about that. Let me bring Diane in as well, who is a teacher.
Well, I'm actually training to be a teacher at the moment.
You're training to be a teacher in Leicester? OK.
Yes.
Now, say hello to Penny.
Hello, Penny.
Now, Penny thinks that teachers should be able to whack kids. What do you think?
I don't agree with that at all. First of all, it's again getting the lack of respect. And if we're going to be living in a society that agrees with hitting people and like using that type of way to control everyone, we're looking at Stalin regimes and like Hitler regimes and things.
Penny, what do you think? Tell Diane.
I don't agree. I really just don't agree. I mean, people need to respect people.
Is that true?
I think it's got to start in schools.
Well, I'd hope...
I don't think a quick slap across the back of the legs is going to hurt anybody.
Well, don't do it to me.
It hasn't hurt me, and it hasn't hurt my brother.
Diane, come back in. Tell her.
Well, you were saying about psychology courses and stuff, and I'm at teacher training college at the moment. At the moment, we're doing psychology courses, sociology courses, and philosophy courses of education. And I don't really think that through hitting someone you will gain the respect at all. I think you should get it really through the way you respond with children, the attitude that you have with the children, and the relationship that you have with the children. That really should be built on.
Diane, do you think perhaps the wrong sort of people have been becoming teachers, and maybe because we don't treat teachers with respect and we don't certainly pay them enough money, we're not getting the right sort of people wanting to be teachers?
I'd hope not, because most of my friends at college really do want to be teachers, and I think they have the right attitude. But I'm pleased you brought in the attitude of respect towards teachers from society, which is one of the things I'd really like to bring in. I think teachers come under a lot of criticism from like the parents and the government and the social workers and stuff. And the thing I was ringing in about is the new disciplinary action and children being excluded from school. And I think that's quite good. What I wanted to say was that if you have, say, a class of 35 and you've got one really disruptive child in your classroom, I'd rather teach 34 of them well and have that child excluded than have that child mucking up my lessons.
Sure. What do you think, though, should be the highest level of children in a class? I mean, what do you think, 20, 15?
To tell the truth, I've recently done a teaching practice. I had 25 children in my class, and that was a perfect number.
Yeah.
I got to know the children really well, and I was differentiating my lessons to suit different needs of different children. I think once you get in 30, 35 and 40, you can't get to know the children as individuals. You haven't got enough time to hear all of the children read,
Sure.
not even in 1 week.
Well, maybe that would sort some of the problems of employment out there. Maybe we should be looking at having much smaller class sizes. We've got less children now, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah, OK, thank you very much indeed. What do you mean? What's that about? OK, another really serious, important burning issue. Val Adams is in Wadebridge. OK, Val?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good afternoon. It's good afternoon.
Yes, afternoon.
What would you like to talk about?
I'd like to talk about Poldark.
Poldark?
Yes. I run the Poldark Society, and really the issue of the current crisis, as we're calling it, with the replacements of Robin Ellis and Anne Howard-Rees in the key roles in Poldark, the HTV production, it's causing quite a stir. I've had over 7,000 letters in 3 weeks.
Isn't this a very sad person? I mean, isn't this, Val, I mean, is there more important things to worry about in life?
There's other people to worry about those. This is our important issue, and
you know, you're worried about the new main characters in Poldark.
Yes, why not? Somebody has to. It's about time the people stood up for what they wanted.
Now look, the problems of conkers are far more important, please.
So, do you? Well, conkers to you too.
Oh, fine. Thank you very much indeed, Val. Right, on to Nicholas Bevan in Porthcawl. And Nicholas wants to talk about...
Good afternoon, James. I'd like to talk about education.
Right.
All children are taught academic skills in respect of being able to learn a subject and then relate it in an exam to show what potential they may have in the outside world.
Yes.
I think it would be an excellent idea if they were also taught about positive attitude, how to cope with rejection.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Self-esteem.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
The other thing, that would help create people like Richard Branson.
And not tell children that because they're not academically on the ball that they're not failures. Make sure that people know, because they don't come top of the class all the time, that they are not failures.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the hand you're dealt, it's how you play it that counts.
Absolutely right. That's good.
If more people left school with a far positive attitude and were taught in people skills, how to interact with people...
Nicholas, thank you very much indeed, and I'm glad that that's the last call on the programme today. I'm afraid that all good things have to come to an end. And now is the time for me to say goodbye. I was going to sing, but I'm not. Can I also say how much that I've enjoyed having Marcelle Dargy-Smith as my guest today, how much I've enjoyed talking to you at home, both today and on all the previous Talk About programmes. I know many of you have found it frustrating, very frustrating, that we have not had more time to talk and more of you to talk to each day. Well, you have the last chance not to be frustrated tomorrow, as it's the last Talk About of the current series. Be sure not to miss Joan Bakewell and her guest David Starkey. Bye-bye.